Can you please tell us your first name and your age?
Kayley, and I am 23.
What does it mean to be you?
I usually use probably pretty superficial words to describe myself, so I'll say I'm a student, I'm a graduate, I work in X, Y, and Z. But I think on a deeper level, what it means to be me is to be very caring, to be 100% all in anything that I do. I love very deeply and very fiercely.
What does it mean to be perfect?
It's so subjective, and we're brought up to really believe a certain set of standards is what's perfect. I think if you're living your best life, doing the things that you do best to the best of your ability, I think that's what it means to be perfect. And it's not going to look the same on anybody physically or mentally. I always believe in being the best version of yourself because you can't change what you have so drastically that you become another person, but you can take what you do have and make it better. If there are certain things about yourself that you don't like, you have the power to change that no matter what it is, but you're still you, and I think that's the most important thing, that being perfect is just being the best you that you can be.
What does it mean to be 23?
Nobody likes you when you're 23. 23 has been a fun year. A lot has happened. I'm graduating grad school this year. That's not something I ever thought that I would do. I started working a full-time job that I love this year. I moved kind of independently on my own. I feel like 23 for me has been the first year where I feel like I'm a grown-up. I feel capable and confident of handling anything that comes my way in the world, whether that's paying my taxes, just life situations that come up with friends and family. I feel like I've now kind of started that foray into what it means to be an adult.
What does it mean to be kind?
I want to say it's putting other people before yourself, but I don't think that's always fair because that's not being kind to yourself. I think it's just genuinely treating other people with respect, whether that's telling somebody some tough love if that's something that's going to make their life better, putting yourself before somebody else because you need to look after your own well-being. I think kindness is just a genuine appreciation of anyone in the world around you and a genuine care for that person.
What does it mean to be a friend?
Friendship to me is always so interesting because I like to think of my friends as family. I don't think there needs to be a really strong distinction between the two because if you have people in your life, whether by blood or just, shared interests who are important to you and you care about, I don't see a huge differentiation between your friends and your family. You can make your friends your family. And I think being a friend or a family member kind of to that extent is being somebody who would drop anything to do something for that person if that person needed you. A lot of our purpose here is not to just be focused on ourselves. We should be focused on other people and doing things that help them. And being a friend, you have that beautiful ability to choose those people because otherwise you're spending time on somebody who isn't the kind of person who's going to be a friend to you. And I think there needs to be some reciprocity there where if you would drop anything for somebody, they should be able to drop anything for you.
What does it mean to be successful?
It's kind of cliche, but I think being successful is being content. Maybe not happy per se, because happiness is sometimes a hard thing to chase down, but I think being genuinely content with your life and being pleased with where you're at, whether it's in terms of money, in terms of whether you have a family, a good relationship, things like that. I think if you look around you, I always think if you kind of do one of those sighs and you say everything's okay here, I think that's what it means to be successful.
What does it mean to be confident?
Confidence is tricky. That's something I've struggled with a lot in my life. There's always that fake it till you make it, but it's hard to even start faking it if you don't have a lot of confidence. But I think sometimes it's good to take stock of all the things that you uniquely contribute to the world and say, that's awesome. I might not be the best person at whatever this is, but I'm doing it uniquely, and nobody else can contribute that the same way that I can. Being able to recognize that, I think, gives you a great sense of confidence.
What does it mean to be present?
So I studied communication, and presence for me relates a lot to technology because I know kind of firsthand how distracting it can be in the communication process to not be fully engaged with somebody in a room, just the two of you. I think being present is putting away everything else that can distract you, whether it is technology or other thoughts that aren't pertaining to your situation. But I think it's being able to focus on what's going on in front of you. And sometimes that's saying, I'm worried about something that I need to do in 3 hours, but right now that's not important. What's important is what's happening in front of me. I think it is good to be able to look ahead, and some worries are important to have because they kind of keep you on a good path. But being able to sit there and just say, this is what I'm doing right now, this is who I'm talking to, this is the task, this is the world around me, even if you're just sitting in a park and appreciating something. I think being able to just focus on that is what it means to be present.
What does it mean to be human?
Being aware of and accepting of good and bad aspects of yourself. And to be human, I think, is to take stock of all of those external sort of things, whether it's, horrible famines going on or, great laws being passed, but also being able to look at yourself and say, there's some really good and bad things about me, but they all contribute to who I am as a person. And I think that kind of separates us from animals in a lot of ways, is because they don't kind of have that higher level of thinking to be able to really look internally at themselves. And we do.
What does it mean to be in love?
When you're in love, it's a very easy thing to describe, and you use all sorts of things, like you get butterflies, you feel like yourself. But when you fall out of love, it's hard to go back and be like, what were those emotions like? Not being in love right now, I'm like, I don't remember what it's like to be in love. But I think I remember a sense of security where you don't feel pressured to be anything other than what you are. And there's another person in your life who is there focused on making you a better person and focused on being in the world together.
What does it mean to be an adult?
Being able to make decisions for yourself, which seems kind of like a silly response in some ways, because that's what you always tell your parents when you're little, like, just wait till I'm an adult and I can do whatever I want. But I think that's kind of true. But at the same time, it's taking responsibility for those decisions you make for yourself. If you up, you have to say, yeah, I did that, I messed up. With power comes great responsibility, and for me, that's what being an adult is so far.
What does it mean to be lucky?
I don't really believe in luck. I'm a big believer in you make your own luck in the world. I'd like to think everything happens for a reason, but it seems silly to me that there's some idea out there that things are going to happen to you just because of X, Y, or Z, like just because you're there and you're maybe a good person. I think that you have the power that if you want something to happen, instead of waiting for a lucky opportunity, you make that opportunity. We have so much available to us in this world that I think it would be silly to just hope that you're lucky, hope something falls in your lap, when you can 100% be out there making that happen for yourself.
What does it mean to be a family?
I have a pretty broad sense of family, I would say. I definitely have my immediate family who I'm incredibly close with, but I moved away from home about 6 years ago and have lived thousands of miles from my family in those 6 years, seeing them a couple of times. So I've really had to build a family of both friends and acquaintances and coworkers and things like that. Being a part of a family is incredibly important to me because we're not solitary creatures. As much as some of us would like to think that we are, think that we don't need anybody and we can do it all on our own, I really don't think that's true. And family comes with this idea of unconditional love, and I think you can find that in friendships as well. Those are the people who are going to have your back, and I think when you're choosing people to be a part of your family, that's something important to consider. Obviously not everyone's blessed with a birth family that does those things, and I think that's the beautiful thing in the world, is that you, just because you're related to somebody doesn't mean you have to keep them in your life. And I think accepting that freedom to choose is really powerful, in being able to choose the people who make you a better person.
What does it mean to be popular?
I think I still subscribe to the idea that being popular means that you have a lot of friends, but I don't necessarily view popularity as a desirable thing always. Like, it's great if you do have a lot of friends, but I don't think that that's really necessarily a value judgment on who you are as a person. I think lots of people can be popular and have lots of friends, but maybe not be a good person.
What does it mean to be proud?
I feel like a lot of times you're taught that pride is a bad thing. But I've really come to the realization lately that you're your biggest cheerleader, or you should be, because at the end of the day, you go home with yourself. And if you're not happy with things that you've done, you should take care of that, because nobody else is going to be as big of an advocate for you as you can be for yourself. You're the only one with an intimate knowledge of who you are as a person and the things that you want to achieve in your life. And if you're not going to be that person, I don't think you can expect other people to be. So I think the way that you view yourself has a huge impact on how other people view you. So if you can't be proud of something that you've done, if you can't say, hey, I did this thing, I'm super impressed with how it turned out, I put a lot of hard work into it and I recognize, my input, other people aren't going to come in, or other people are going to get tired of continually telling you how great you are if you don't believe it yourself. So I think that, to me, is what being proud is being able to recognize that you can put a lot of work into something, and that's okay to acknowledge.
What does it mean to be free?
I feel like I still imagine freedom is more of a mental thing in a lot of ways than a physical thing. Being free from worry is a lot of what I think being free is. Knowing where your next meal is going to come from, knowing that you have a warm bed to sleep in at night, knowing that if something goes wrong, you're going to be okay. I think that's what being free is, and it's not an easy thing to accomplish, and not a lot of people get to enjoy that, and that's something that I'm still struggling with. Sometimes I don't feel like I am free in a sense because I still feel very bogged down by all of these external worries and pressures that really if I just let go of, I'm sure my life would be better. It's so hard to relinquish that control.
What does it mean to be a role model?
I don't think I've ever really liked the ideas of role models because I don't like the idea of trying to be somebody that you're not. And I think sometimes role models kind of fall into that category because you'll see girls, I know like Jennifer Lawrence is somebody that people a lot of times call a good role model for young girls, but that's a lot of pressure to put on somebody who has their own character flaws and, can't be a 100% perfect person because nobody is. And while she's probably a very good person, I think it can be really damaging to compare yourself to somebody, even if it's in a positive way trying to improve yourself. So to me, being a role model, I think you should try to become your own role model. I think you should look at yourself and look at what it is you want to improve. And you can take inspiration from other people, but in terms of being a role model, you should never strive to be something that you're not. You should strive to improve what you have.
What does it mean to be safe?
I feel like I've lived a very privileged life, so safety in a lot of senses of the word is not something I've ever really struggled with. I feel privileged to be able to say that, and I feel sad to be able to say that because I know not a lot of people feel safe, whether it's in their gender identity, in their economic bracket, in the neighborhood that they live in. Safety means a lot of different things, whether it's your physical or your mental safety. But I think for me, feeling safe is knowing that I have a support network of people around me who love me and care about me, and that if something were to happen to me, I'd have somebody to go to. I'd have a lot of people to go to. And to me, that kind of brings it back to family, is family is almost a synonym for safety for me.
What does it mean to be happy?
Happy is a weird emotion for me. I've been diagnosed with depression and bipolar disorder, so for me, happy is a very relative thing. Happy for me is more being content. It's more not feeling bad. It's kind of the absence of all the really bad things you could be feeling. But it's hard for me too because with bipolar, sometimes happiness is kind of this euphoria, it's a very false happiness. It's because your mind is kind of playing tricks on you and you feel really happy and energized, but it can have incredibly negative consequences and some really bad things can happen. Some days when I'm feeling really good, it's still something I struggle with because I don't know if I'm feeling genuinely happy or if it's a sign that I'm headed into some sort of manic spiral. So I don't seek happiness as much as I seek contentment, because for me that's kind of a safer emotion to feel. But there are still those moments of just pure joy, like when the sun is out, the skies are blue, and you're just outside in the world. Like those kind of just really authentic bursts of joy are the closest thing I think to happiness that I'm comfortable with.
What does it mean to be a survivor?
I struggle with the word survivor because it's hard not to focus on the thing that you survived from, whatever that may be. Whether it's a car accident or sexual assault, there's a lot of negativity loaded in there, and while I appreciate the power of overcoming and how important that is, it's an important narrative for people to see. I feel like as a society we're so drawn to the bad things that when you talk about survivors, it's really hard to talk about all the good things, and a lot of times you focus on, the gory details of what you're a survivor from. So it's not a word I really like to identify with because it invites those kind of probing questions. But I'm so appreciative for all the people out there who are really comfortable owning that identity. I think that's so important for people to be able to see because visibility is key for anybody else who's ever been through something. But I also think there's a lot of pressure that if you have survived something, that you have to take on that narrative as a survivor. And I don't like that pressure because I think sometimes those are very personal situations that you don't have to be the poster child for it. Nobody can make you that poster child. You have the power to say no to that. And I wish more people recognize that because I think it can do a lot of damage to be put in that position.
What does it mean to be home?
Home and family are very similar things for me. Kind of the same thing. Growing up, I lived in, by the time I was 17, I think I'd lived in 6 or 7 different houses. In between 17 and now, I've lived in probably another 6, 7 houses. So for me, home has never been a physical place. I've never experienced that like childhood home, childhood bedroom where you go back and all of those kind of physical things provide you that security. So for me, when I'm home, I'm with my family, no matter where we are. A lot of times now, because my parents live in Seattle and my brother lives in Baltimore, we're never in the same place at the same time. But when we are together, that's when I feel like I'm home. We could be in a hotel room playing Jenga and it's snowing outside, but that's still home for me because I'm with the people I love.